It's 3:17 a.m. My phone screen glows, a muted rectangle of accusation in the otherwise dark living room. I've been staring at it for what feels like hours, though I know it's only been about 20 minutes since Garrett finally stopped responding. Stopped reading even. The blue ticks just hung there, unanswered. My chest feels like someone strapped a lead weight to it, pulling everything down, making it hard to take a full breath. Every shallow inhale just feeds the churning in my stomach. This can't be happening. It just can't. But the cold dread that started as a tiny shiver a few days ago has now bloomed into a full-blown Arctic front, freezing me from the inside out. I feel stupid. Profoundly stupid. How could I have been so blind? So trusting? The question echoes, taunts me, and there's no answer, just the heavy silence of the house and the low hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. I'm 38, always prided myself on being sensible, practical. Garrett and we've been working together on this investment opportunity for almost 5 years now. 5 years of what I thought was smart, calculated growth, building toward a future I could finally see clearly. Not just for me, but for my parents too. Their retirement was tied into this, a significant chunk of it. That's the part that truly crushes me. The betrayal of that trust. Not just mine, but theirs. It started subtly, maybe 2 weeks ago. A skipped payment. Then a vague email about liquidity issues and market fluctuations. Garrett's usual prompt replies became sporadic, then terse. He always had an answer, always a reassuring tone, a clever explanation for any dip or delay. He was smooth, charismatic even. I never doubted him, not really. He was Garrett, my friend, my partner. We talked almost daily about the portfolio, the strategies. He made it all sound so sophisticated, so ironclad. Now, all those conversations, all those confident pronouncements, they just sound hollow, like a bad echo. What started as a gnawing suspicion that maybe he was just bad at communication, or perhaps truly overwhelmed, has morphed into something much uglier. It's the kind of suspicion that makes your blood run cold, the kind that whispers fraud in the back of your mind. A word I've been desperately trying to bat away. A word that, tonight, feels less like a whisper and more like a shout. I look at the last text I sent him. Garrett, please just call me. We need to talk. What is going on with the withdrawals? Nothing. Just the blue ticks. He usually responds within minutes. This silence, this absolute void, where his usual bluster or even a panicked excuse should be, is telling me everything I've been too afraid to admit. It's not just a delay. It's not just a hiccup. This is bigger. So much bigger. And I have this awful sinking feeling that my entire financial future, everything I've worked for, might just be gone. Vanished. And I don't even know how to begin to process that. It's hard to reconcile the panicked feeling in my gut right now with the excitement I felt that day 6 years ago when I first met Garrett. My mind keeps replaying the beginning, trying to pinpoint where the switch flipped, where I went from hopeful to absolutely terrified. It was late spring, 2018, at some fintech mixer in downtown Austin. I was there mostly out of obligation, feeling pretty uninspired by my corporate accounting job. Decent pay, sure, but mind-numbingly dull. I was 32, looking for something more. A spark. A different path. Garrett Harding was, to put it mildly, a presence. Tall, sharply dressed in a suit that looked expensive but not flashy, with a smile that just radiated confidence. He had this way of making eye contact that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. He was talking about disruptive investment strategies and leveraging overlooked assets. All the buzzwords, basically. But he made them sound legitimate, actionable. I overheard him chatting with a couple of guys bragging in a charming way about some impressive returns he'd just delivered for a client. I introduced myself, figuring, why not? We hit it off. Or so I thought. He was a great listener, asked me about my goals, my frustrations with my current job, what I dreamed of doing. I told him about wanting to help my parents retire comfortably, about maybe taking a year off to travel eventually. He nodded almost thoughtfully, like he was filing it all away. He mentioned his own boutique investment firm, Harding Capital Solutions, and how they focused on high net worth individuals, but occasionally took on promising, smaller clients who demonstrated vision. We exchanged cards, and honestly, I didn't think much of it beyond a pleasant networking encounter. But Garrett followed up. A couple of days later, a friendly email, then a call suggesting coffee. We met at a place near my office, a spot called The Daily Grind. He wasn't pushy, not at all. He just talked about market trends, emerging opportunities, and how traditional investment firms were too slow, too conservative. He painted a picture of smart, agile investing tailored to individual goals. He seemed genuinely interested in my goals, which was flattering. He even remembered details from our first conversation. Ethan, you mentioned wanting to secure your parents' future. That's admirable. We help people do that. I was cautious at first. My background is in accounting, so I'm usually pretty skeptical. I did some basic digging on Harding Capital Solutions. It had a website, looked professional enough, testimonials, all that. He wasn't registered with FINRA as a broker-dealer, but he explained that his firm operated more as a private investment partnership, dealing with specific asset classes that didn't require that level of oversight, which sounded plausible given the boutique angle. He even showed me some anonymized performance statements. Impressive numbers, steady growth. My first investment, about 5 years ago, was small, maybe $25,000, money I had sitting in a low-yield savings account. He promised a conservative 8 to 10% annual return, which was already more than double what my bank offered. I figured, what's the worst that could happen? A few months later, the first quarterly report arrived. The numbers were exactly what he'd projected, sometimes a little more. My initial skepticism started to melt away, replaced by a growing sense of relief, of finally being smart with my money. That's when I started telling my parents, Robert and Joan, about it. They were nearing retirement, and their pensions weren't going to cut it. I convinced them to pull a portion of their savings, a substantial amount, and invest with Garrett, too. It felt right, like I was helping them, setting us all up for a comfortable future. We'd meet Garrett for lunch every now and then, usually at some trendy spot he insisted on, always on him. He'd charm my parents, listen to their stories, make them feel special. He became less a financial advisor and more a family friend almost. Our routine settled into a comfortable rhythm. Monthly emails from Garrett, sometimes a call to discuss the portfolio, always positive news. He'd talk about diversification into niche real estate opportunities or strategic plays in emerging tech. It all sounded solid. There were minor things looking back, like how he always seemed to be on the cusp of some massive deal, always traveling, or how he never quite gave me specific CUSIP numbers for the assets we held, always talking in broader terms about funds and partnerships. When I pressed for more detailed statements, he'd say, "Ethan, we're agile. Our portfolio shifts daily. What you see is the net growth. Trust the numbers." And the numbers were good. Too good, maybe. There was this one time, maybe 2 years in, I ran into a guy from that original mixer, Liam, at a grocery store. We recognized each other, chatted briefly. I mentioned I was working with Garrett Harding. Liam's smile faltered for just a second. He just said, "Oh, Garrett." "Yeah, he's quite a character. Good luck with that, man." It was a throwaway comment, almost dismissive, but it stuck with me for a day or two. I remember brushing it off. Liam was a bit of a cynical guy anyway. Garrett was delivering, right? The returns were real. Why question it? I wanted to believe it so badly, especially with my parents' future tied up in it. That desire, that desperate hope for a better tomorrow, That's what made me blind, I think. That's what made me ignore the little unsettling whispers, the small cracks in the facade. The first real crack in the foundation appeared about 5 months ago, in late October. My parents, Joan and Robert, decided they wanted to take a trip, a long-planned cruise to Alaska, and needed to pull out a chunk of their investment for it. Not a huge amount, maybe $35,000, but it was their first withdrawal. I emailed Garrett with the request. His reply came back unusually fast, almost too fast. Absolutely, Ethan! Thrilled they're enjoying the fruits of their patience. Just a slight logistical hiccup this quarter. We've got a couple of major asset liquidations pending, which are going to release significant capital. We're looking at maybe a 2-week delay for any large withdrawals. Nothing to worry about, just a timing issue. I remember sitting there, staring at the email, a tiny knot forming in my stomach. 2 weeks? That felt odd. He'd always prided himself on liquidity, on nimble movements. I called him. Hey, Garrett, it's Ethan. About Mom and Dad's withdrawal, 2 weeks, really. They were hoping to book the cruise soon. He sounded a little breathless, like he was in a hurry. Ethan, trust me, it's for the best. We're talking about optimizing returns here. You want me to sell off assets at a suboptimal time just to get cash in 2 days? That's not how we operate. Patience is key. You know that he even sounded a little annoyed, which was new. I felt a pang of guilt for questioning him. He was right, I told myself. Patience. Optimize. This was a professional doing his job. I relayed the message to my parents, who were a bit disappointed but understood. He's always done right by us, my dad said, which made me feel a bit better. 2 weeks turned into 3, then 4. My parents started to get antsy, and so did I. I emailed Garrett again, then called. He finally picked up on the 5th try. Ethan, what can I say? These things are complex. We're dealing with international partners on one of the real estate ventures. Paperwork is a nightmare. It's coming, I promise. Just give me another week maximum. I'm literally chasing signatures right now. He sounded genuinely stressed, which again made me feel bad. I pictured him hustling, working hard for us. It was a good story. I chose to believe it. The money finally came through about 5 weeks later. My parents booked their cruise and the knot in my stomach loosened. See, I told myself, just a blip. Everything's fine. Then came December. I needed to pull out some money for a down payment on a new car. Nothing huge, just a little over $10,000. I figured since the last one was delayed, I'd give him extra notice. I sent the request on the 1st of the month. Garrett responded with his usual positive spin. Great timing, Ethan. We're forecasting a strong end to the year. Funds should be available by the 15th. No problem. The 15th came and went. No money. I emailed. No response. I called. Straight to voicemail. This went on for 3 days. Panic started to set in. Real panic. I called him, left messages. I texted. Nothing. On the 4th day, he finally replied to my email. A short, terse note. Dealing with a personal emergency. We'll be back in touch when I can. Funds are processing. Personal emergency? That felt like a convenient excuse. My gut screamed at me. I called my friend Julian, who works in wealth management. I didn't tell him everything, just that I had an investment with a private firm and was having trouble getting a withdrawal. What kind of private firm, Ethan? Are they licensed? What's the underlying asset? He pressed. I mumbled about niche real estate and private partnerships. Julian sounded wary. Look, if they're not transparent about the actual holdings, or if withdrawals are consistently delayed, that's a huge red flag, man. You need to get more details immediately. I nodded, feeling sick. Julian didn't know Garrett, had no reason to be anything but objective. His words hammered home a truth I was trying to avoid. I kept trying to reach Garrett, growing more frantic with each passing day. My emails became less polite, my voicemails more urgent. Garrett, I need this money. What's going on? You have to call me back. My parents were asking about their next quarterly report, and I was stalling, telling them Garrett was swamped. I felt like a fraud myself, protecting his reputation even as my own world started to crumble. About a month later, early January, I finally got him on the phone. He sounded different, tired, almost deflated. Ethan, look, I'm not going to lie to you. Things are complicated. There's been an issue with one of our major partners. A legal dispute that's frozen a lot of our assets. It's temporary, I assure you. But it means I can't release funds right now. Not yours, not anyone's. My heart sank to my feet. What do you mean frozen? What kind of legal dispute? Why wasn't I told about this earlier? My voice was shaking. It's confidential, client-attorney privilege and all that, but we're fighting it. My lawyers are confident we'll win. It's going to take some time, maybe a few months, but your money is safe. It's all there, just inaccessible. I didn't believe him, not fully. The story was too convenient, too vague. I pressed him. Garrett, this is my money. My parents' money. I need specifics. What assets? What partner? What court? He became agitated. Ethan, I can't just tell you every detail of a private legal battle. Do you think I want this? Do you think I'm enjoying this? I'm losing sleep over this. I'm doing everything I can. Just trust me. Give me 2 months. I'll make it right. He sounded desperate, almost pleading. And a part of me, the part that wanted to believe in the good old Garrett, wanted to trust him. It was easier than facing the alternative. I told my parents I was having trouble getting a hold of Garrett, that there were some unforeseen delays. My mom, Joan, ever the worrier, said, Ethan, honey, is everything okay? You look pale. I brushed it off. Just stress from work, Mom. I started checking the Harding Capital Solutions website every day. It still looked fine, but I noticed the quarterly reports link was gone. Then the Contact Us page started returning an error. Small things, but they piled up. I tried to find news articles about Harding Capital Solutions legal dispute, or anything similar. Nothing. It was like he existed in a bubble. The final straw before tonight came a few weeks ago. I sent an email asking for a full itemized statement of my account. Not just the balance, but the actual assets. The fund names, everything. No reply for 3 days. Then a single text message from Garrett. Ethan, this is getting out of hand. Your constant demands are hindering my ability to resolve things. Back off for a bit, okay? I'll be in touch when I have solid news. That text, so dismissive, so arrogant, flipped a switch in me. The trust shattered. It wasn't just a blip or a personal emergency or a legal dispute. This was a deliberate stonewalling. This was something far more sinister, and that's when the cold dread really started, the kind that led me to this couch, staring at my phone, the blue ticks haunting me. The true moment of truth, the one that completely shattered any lingering hope or denial, didn't come from Garrett. It came from a local news article I stumbled across late one Tuesday morning, about 2 days after his last dismissive text. I was at my desk at work, supposedly reviewing a balance sheet, but my eyes kept drifting to a search engine tab I had opened for Harding Capital Solutions fraud. I'd been doing this for weeks, almost compulsively, always with the same result. Nothing. But this time something new popped up. A small, local, online investigative piece, buried on page 3 of the search results. The headline in a small, almost unassuming font read, Local Financial Advisor Under Scrutiny Following Investor Complaints. My breath hitched. My hand flew to my mouth, muffling a gasp. It couldn't be. Not Garrett. The article had his photo, smiling, charismatic, just like I remembered him. The same picture from his website, which was now completely offline, I discovered earlier that morning. My heart started hammering against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat. I clicked, my fingers trembling so much I almost missed the link. The article laid it all out. complaints from multiple investors about delayed withdrawals, vague explanations, then total radio silence. It mentioned a Mr. Garrett Harding operating out of a small office suite in an executive building on Congress Avenue, the very address listed on his old business cards. It talked about a pattern of unusual activity and lack of transparency regarding asset holdings. One quote from an anonymous investor: "He kept telling me he was about to close a big deal, always just around the corner, always needing more time." That line had hit me like a physical blow. That was my experience. That was my parents' experience. It was all a lie. My vision blurred. I felt a wave of nausea so strong, I thought I was going to throw up right there at my desk. My hands were clammy, cold, despite the sudden feverish flush that spread across my face. The hum of the office around me, the clack of keyboards, the low murmur of conversations, the distant whir of the coffee machine, all faded into a distant, muffled roar. It was like I was underwater, trying to gasp for air. My mind raced, jumping from denial to a horrifying, dawning realization. It's a Ponzi scheme. That's what this is. Oh my God. It's a Ponzi scheme. The term, always something I'd read about in news stories, something that happened to other, less careful people, was now plastered across my own life in bold, accusing letters. I stumbled away from my desk, mumbling something about needing to grab coffee to my cube-mate, Chloe, who just nodded distractedly. I practically ran to the break room, then veered into the nearest empty conference room, locking the door behind me. I pulled out my phone, my fingers fumbling with the screen. I had to call him. I had to confront him. It felt like an instinct, a primal need to scream at the man who had stolen everything. I dialed his number. It rang once, twice, a third time, then went to voicemail. I redialed, my breath catching in my throat. It went to voicemail again. On the fifth try, to my shock, he picked up. His voice, usually so smooth and confident, sounded strained, hollow. "Yeah, Garrett Harding." "Garrett, it's Ethan." What the hell is this? I just read the article. My voice was barely a whisper, ragged with suppressed fury and terror. There was a long, agonizing pause. I could hear a distant siren wailing outside his end, or maybe it was just the blood rushing in my ears. "Ethan, look. It's not what it looks like." His voice was low, devoid of his usual swagger. "Not what it looks like." "It looks like you're a fraud, Garrett. It looks like you've stolen my money. My parents' money." My voice was rising. I couldn't help it. I had to grip the conference room table to keep from shaking. Another pause. A sigh, almost. "Ethan, you need to calm down. I can explain." "Explain what? Explain why you're being investigated? Explain why you lied to me for years? Explain why my parents might lose their entire retirement fund?" The words tumbled out, raw and uncontrolled. I didn't lie. I was trying to keep things going. There were setbacks. Bigger than I anticipated, his voice was quiet now, almost defeated. "Setbacks? You called it a legal dispute. You said the money was safe. Is it safe, Garrett? Is it? Or is it all gone?" I was choking on the words, my eyes burning. He was quiet again. The silence stretched, thick and heavy, punctuated only by my ragged breathing and the faint echo of my own frantic pulse. Then, so softly I almost missed it, he said, "Ethan, I made some mistakes." I got in over my head mistakes, that word. It hung in the air, pathetic and infuriating. It wasn't mistakes, it was theft. "Where is it, Garrett? Where's the money?" I demanded, the last vestiges of my self-control fraying. He stammered, then mumbled, I don't have it, Ethan." "Not like you think. It's tied up. It's gone." The last 3 words, It's gone, hit me with the force of a physical blow. My knees buckled. I slumped against the cold glass wall of the conference room, the phone pressed hard against my ear. My vision went black for a second, then snapped back into a dizzying kaleidoscope of color. Gone. All of it. years of savings, my parents' future. All of it just gone. I couldn't speak. The air felt thin, non-existent. Garrett, sensing my silence, continued, a desperate plea in his voice. I'm trying to fix it, Ethan. I really am, but it's a mess. I don't know what to tell you. You don't know what to tell me? I finally managed, my voice a broken whisper. You could tell me where my money is. You could tell me why you did this. He mumbled something else, incoherent, like he was talking to himself. I didn't care. I felt a surge of cold, hard rage, replacing the terror. I hung up, just ended the call. The phone felt like a brick in my hand. I stared at it. Then, at the empty conference room, the blinds drawn against the bright midday sun. I couldn't go back to my desk. I couldn't sit there, pretending to work. I had to move. I had to do something. Anything. My first immediate action, after the call, after the gut-wrenching realization, was to call my parents. Even though I had no idea what I was going to tell them. Calling my parents was one of the hardest things I've ever done. My mom, Joan, answered cheerful, asking about my day. I just blurted it out without preamble because I couldn't hold it in. Mom, it's Garrett. There's been a problem. A really bad problem with the investments. The line went silent. Then I heard her call to my dad, Robert, her voice suddenly tight with fear. I tried to explain the Ponzi scheme, the article, his confession, the it's gone. It was fragmented, choked with tears and anger. My dad took the phone, his voice surprisingly calm, but with an underlying steel I rarely heard. Ethan, slow down. What exactly happened? I went home early from work that day, feigning a sudden illness. The world felt like it was spinning off its axis. My parents came over within the hour, their faces etched with worry and disbelief. My dad, practical as ever, immediately started asking about how much, what documents I had, what my next steps were. My mom, on the other hand, was just devastated. That nice young man, she kept saying, shaking her head. He always seemed so kind. It ripped me apart to see them hurting, knowing I was the one who had brought Garrett into their lives. The guilt was a physical weight, pressing down on me. The immediate financial impact was crushing. My personal savings, the down payment for the car, gone. But my parents' retirement fund, that was the real gut punch. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. They were planning to sell their house in a couple of years and downsize, using the investment to supplement their Social Security. Now, that future was a hazy, terrifying unknown. I had to tell them I might not be able to help them as much as I'd hoped, that my own resources were decimated. It felt like I'd failed them spectacularly. Julian, my friend from wealth management, was the first person I called for actual advice. He listened patiently, then confirmed my worst fears. Ponzi scheme, Ethan. Classic. You need to contact the authorities, like yesterday. The SEC, the FBI, maybe local police too, and find a lawyer specializing in investor fraud. You're not the only one, trust me. His words were a bleak confirmation, a cold splash of reality. He also advised me to compile every single email, text, bank statement, and quarterly report I had from Garrett. The next few weeks were a blur of phone calls and paperwork. Filing a report with the SEC felt like shouting into a void. They were polite but non-committal, saying they'd look into it. The police, too, were sympathetic but indicated that financial fraud cases are complex and often slow. I found a lawyer, a sharp woman named Eleanor Vance, through a referral. Her initial consultation was grim. Ethan, these cases are tough. Recovery is rarely 100%. He's likely spent the money or moved it. We'll join a class action if one forms, or we'll pursue him individually if there's any asset left. The legal fees alone felt like another financial drain I couldn't afford. The emotional roller coaster was brutal. Some days I was consumed by a burning rage. picturing Garrett, wanting to confront him, make him pay. Other days, I felt an overwhelming sadness, a profound sense of loss for the future that had been stolen. Then there was the shame, the sheer embarrassment of having been so thoroughly duped. I, an accountant, fell for a scam. How could I have been so stupid? I avoided social gatherings, convinced everyone would see it on my face, that they'd know. A week after the article, more local news outlets picked up the story. Other victims started to emerge, contacting the lawyer. We learned Garrett didn't just target individuals, he'd also taken money from small businesses, local charities. The sheer scale of it was sickening. My dad, Robert, even remembered seeing Garrett at a local Rotary Club meeting, schmoozing, always with a smile. It was a mask, a well-crafted facade. One unexpected discovery came from Eleanor, my lawyer. She found public records indicating Garrett had recently purchased a luxury condo in Miami under an LLC, just a few months before everything imploded. And his wife, who I didn't even know he had also suddenly acquired a couple of high-end vehicles. It was a punch to the gut. While we were struggling to make ends meet, he was living it up with our money. It fueled the anger, made the injustice even more visceral. We didn't have kids, thankfully, but if I did, the thought of this happening would be even worse. My job felt tenuous, my focus shattered. My apartment lease was up in 6 months, and the thought of finding a new place with barely any savings was daunting. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about trust, about dignity, about picking up the pieces of a life that felt completely derailed. So, here I am, almost 6 months after that dreadful phone call. Garrett Harding has been indicted, formally charged with wire fraud and money laundering. He's out on bail somehow. The legal process is grinding along, slow and frustrating. My lawyer, Eleanor, says it could be years before any resolution, let alone any recovery of funds. My parents are managing, thankfully. My dad picked up some part-time consulting work, and my mom started selling her pottery again. Something she loved but hadn't done in years. They've been incredibly understanding, never once blaming me, which almost makes the guilt worse. Financially, I'm back to square one, essentially. My emergency fund is gone, used up by legal fees and bridging the gap for my parents when they needed it most. I'm living paycheck to paycheck again, which feels like a huge step backward at 38. I've started rebuilding my savings, just small amounts for now, but it's a slow uphill climb. The new car? Still driving my old clunker, praying it holds out. What have I learned? Don't trust anyone implicitly with your money, no matter how charming they are, no matter how much you want to believe them. Always, always, always verify. Look for official registrations. Ask for specific, verifiable asset documentation, and if it sounds too good to be true, it absolutely is. I learned a brutal lesson about due diligence and about my own capacity for self-deception when hope is involved. I thought I was smart, but I let my guard down because I wanted a comfortable future, not just for me, but for my parents. That vulnerability was exploited. This whole mess has definitely changed me. I'm more cautious now, almost to a fault. Trust, especially with new people, feels like a really fragile thing. I analyze everything, sometimes to an unhealthy degree. It's affected my relationships too. My connection with Julian, my friend, has strengthened as he's been a rock through all this. But I find myself pulling away from others, not wanting to talk about it, feeling the shame. It's hard to imagine ever trusting someone enough to go into any kind of partnership again, whether it's financial or even personal. I have to believe that will change over time. But right now, it feels like a permanent scar. I don't know what the future holds. Will we ever get any of our money back? Will Garrett actually face real justice? Or will he just disappear into the system? Will I ever feel financially secure again? These are the questions that keep me up at night, alongside the echo of, it's gone. I'm sharing this because maybe someone else out there is in a similar situation, or is about to be, maybe my story can be a warning. And honestly, it just helps to get it all out, to tell people who might understand, even if you're just strangers on the internet. Thanks for listening.